Rock Hard Radio 1 presents from New York City, Rock Hard with Jay Conroy.
Neill Byrnes, everyone. Welcome to Rock Hard with Jay Conroy. Thank you very much for doing this for us. We really appreciate it.
So excited, Jay. I've heard so much about the show, and I've listened a couple times online, and very excited to be on it. Thanks for having me.
Well, as you know, we whore Aerosmith relentlessly on the show.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. Hey, I want to start at the present. I see that you guys are actually in a contest for the world's greatest tribute band that's coming up on March 3rd at the Whiskey A Go-Go.
Yeah, that's like the coolest thing. They have this show on Access TV called The World's Greatest Tribute Bands, and they selected us, draw the line, to be the representation for Aerosmith. It was an amazing honor to be selected out of every tribute band in the world as the best, and to appear on this show live at the Whiskey on March 3rd.
Now, who else is in that? What other kind of bands? Is there Rush tribute bands or any other sort of tribute bands there?
Yeah, this is the second season of it, and I know this season they have like a David Bowie band, or maybe that was last year. They just had an Eagles band. They had a Rush band. There's a Kiss band going to be on it. Prince, I think, was on it. I mean, there's almost a band to everyone you can imagine. All the biggest acts through the last 40 years.
So this is a contest with other bands that you'll be in?
Oh no, it's not a contest. They've just selected from a group of people that they have that are in the music industry. They got together, they researched all the bands that were out there, and they picked the best of the best.
That is very cool. And the Whiskey A Go-Go, no less.
Yeah, a lot of history at that place, huh?
Oh, yeah. I
have to channel my inner Jim Morrison for this show.
Yeah. Have you ever played there before?
Not the Whiskey. On Sunset Boulevard, we played the House of Blues out there, but not the Whiskey.
I read in your stuff that you have played, or Draw the Line has played, in every state in the country except 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've never played Hawaii, never played Alaska.
Well, those 2 I can see you passing on.
But we're willing to go.
Yeah.
If they'll book it, we'll show.
Oh yeah. Now I want to read something here that I actually took off your website. Draw the Line. Authentically raised in Boston, Massachusetts, this organic show has been cultivated from the very roots that inspired and drive Aerosmith to this day. A powerful transformation of character far beyond just a tribute group. This remarkable show will give you goosebumps with the memories of the 70s, bringing you the feel of the 80s, and with all the exuberance of the 90s and today. Adding in its great audience interaction, it is a definite crowd pleaser for all age groups. The true distinction in the show is the Steven Tyler doppelganger, Neill Byrnes. Now, what the hell is a doppelganger, Neil?
It's another word for saying like impersonator or double.
Okay, I love the word. I thought it was cool.
It's cool, huh?
Yeah. Not only does he naturally look like the infamous rock icon, but his voice naturally sounds like Tyler. He has the tone, the mannerisms, the attitude of America's favorite rocker. Byrnes has himself been born and raised in the Boston area, has been a musician since the age of 9, starting with the trombone, then the drums, then the bass, eventually graduating from New England Conservatory of Music. Only 2 months into Draw the Line, he met Steven Tyler at a lookalike contest, and Tyler was so impressed by his new talent, he referred Neill to his personal vocal coach. Neill spent 10 years in vocal training with Tyler's own vocal coach, Mark Baxter. during his college tenure at Northeastern University and beyond. Now, this is the part I find really interesting here. Having received, and I hope I pronounced this right, having received his degree cum laude in psychology, Byrnes nevertheless decided to pursue his musical interest through Draw the Line. He continues to hone his craft by pursuing acting parts as well as keeping up with Tyler's wardrobe and stage antics. Tell me about the psychology thing.
Well, my parents were really adamant that I go to school. They were like, you need to have something in your back pocket in case the music career doesn't work out. You know, granted, at that time, you know, in my late teens, early 20s, I wasn't really too keen on it, but I decided to go anyways. And as with anything, or like most of the things I do, that I just fully commit myself to doing it. And I went to school and I studied and I graduated with honors there. Although, so if this music thing doesn't work out for me, I don't know. I guess I have something to fall back on.
That's always the story, isn't it? Mom and Dad want you to, get an education just in case it doesn't work out.
That's right.
Also, some of the stuff that I was reading when I was reading your bio, you got some really, really nice endorsements here. Let me read a couple of them here. Adam Sandler says, just like the real thing. Steven Tyler says, they are, R is capitalized, the best. An amazing talent, great performance from Tony Orlando. How'd that come about?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We did a private party for Adam Sandler when he was shooting a film in the Boston area. And Tony Orlando was in the movie.
Okay.
And we played this event down on Cape Cod. And it was basically just for Adam Sandler's family and the cast, and and Tony Orlando was there. And Tony Orlando got up and he sang, "Dude Looks Like a Lady" with us. It was hysterical.
Crazy.
You know what I mean? He's such a great guy, and what a talent himself. And he just thought we were great, and we thought he was great, and Adam Sandler thought we were great, and they allowed us to use those quotes. So that's fantastic.
And Tony Orlando, I don't care what anybody says, Candida and Knock 3 Times are great songs.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Right?
Guilty pleasures, right?
I'm kind of one of those people, I'm like, you know what? I don't say guilty pleasure. I actually do a segment on the show. It's called Off My Rocker. And that's where I'll play a song like Knock 3 Times. I'll go, okay, I'm going to go off my rocker. It's a song I generally wouldn't play on the show. It still doesn't mean it's not a good song. And I play, like in fact, this week's show, I'm debating Sister Golden Hair by America.
Love that song.
Right. There's all these songs I love that are not hard rock songs that don't fit on the show. So I said, you know what? Why don't we just develop a segment called I'm Off My Rocker, and this is what I'm going to do. So
that's very cool.
Also from, now, it says here Joey Kramer got up and played with you guys one time?
Yeah, we did a gig back in the 90s in a local club in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And Joey was there, and Ray Tabano was there. And
Ray's everywhere, isn't he?
Yeah, I know. Ray had his band, Crazy Ray and the Watchdogs, and we were doing a few gigs with those guys. And Kramer came up, and he hopped up on stage,
Nice. That's very cool.
Over the years, we've been fortunate enough to have just about all those guys come and check out the show and hang out and see what we do up hand, close and personal, and really get a flavor for what it is that we do, as opposed to just some schleppy band getting out there and playing their songs and not giving a rat's ass.
Well, that you're not, because I have seen the band. One more quote here I want to get to, because this is a big one, and this is nice. Consistent ticket sales and production that delivers. And that comes from Bob, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Dutia, from Live Nation.
Bob Duteau.
Okay.
Yeah, he's vice president of Clear Channel in Live Nation here in New England. Has been a staunch supporter of the band. He's come to numerous shows, and he's believed in us. He's believed in us, and he really likes what we're doing, and he likes where we're going with the new show that we're doing, the Aerosmith Legacy show, which maybe we can get into a little bit now, or maybe talk a little bit more about. But it's a retrospective show encompassing all of Aerosmith's career with video and a narration by Ray Tabano. He's involved with it, and we do costume changes like a Beatlemania, and we span the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. Developing the whole show with special lighting and video. It's like a really big production. So I mean, that's where we've taken this show to draw the line. We've taken that and we've morphed it into a bigger show. So now we have both shows where we can go out as Draw the Line and play any venue for any sort of situation, or we can take this really big production into performing arts centers and really give you the story of Aerosmith as well, visually as well as musically.
I think that's a great idea, and it's moving forward. Now, how soon will you be ready with that?
Well, we've already done a show. We've already done one show. We did our test show in November. It was in Norwood, Massachusetts, at a theater, the Norwood Theater down there, beautiful place, and it went off great. It had a few glitches as far as what the lighting cues were and stuff like that, which was expected in the first time of a production. But now we've gone back and we fixed everything, and we had to test it once just to see where it was, and we did it locally, and we want to make sure that we can fix all the bugs before we throw it out nationally. But we've already lined up a lot of shows overseas to do a tour starting next winter, I believe, over in Europe to start with that, and we may be doing some U.S. shows with it in the fall.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
You guys have played. You've played from what I read. Let me just double check my notes here. South America, England, Canada, Japan. You've played all those places.
We've been all over the place, and there's some, places like when we went down to Honduras. And, it was an eye-opening experience for us in the sense that it's a military state there.
Okay.
When you go there and you get off the plane and everybody's got a machine gun. Mm. You know what I mean?
Welcome.
And we've played some place. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a totally and it just seems like you get on the plane in Boston and you get off the plane in this country. You're not on a plane that long. And what a difference, it's night and day from these places when you go there. But the audiences are also receptive. Mm. You know what I mean? They love Aerosmith is worldwide.
Oh,
and
yeah.
People go crazy, especially in like Central America, South America. People really, really love.
South America is incredible. I follow them closely on Facebook. We have a lot of South American listeners to the show. And when I first started the show, Aerosmith hadn't been there in a while. And then when Aerosmith announced they were coming, they freaked out. And I also noticed too, and you can probably attest to this, is that in America, the age range of the fans is pretty wide. I mean, you got people like me that bring their kids, and you got people up into their 60s. But when you go to South America, they're all like 20-something. It's amazing. Yeah. They're like young.
It's like the reggaeton comes out to jam with some Aerosmith,
Yeah. But I like that because it gives them longevity. You know what I mean? It's like, sometimes the older fans, they kind of, they die off, whatever. I don't mean die off literally. I mean, they just, do whatever it is.
Well, they don't cross culturally the way Aerosmith has. They've started with the guys in the 70s who are now in their 60s, and they reinvented themselves in the 80s for the people that are in their 40s.
Right.
And now they reinvented it again for the people in their 30s that were in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then they came out with Guitar Hero and all that and turned on a whole new generation of kids. So those kids are just becoming teenagers now or late teens, you know what I mean? And the American Idol thing went even further and grabbed even kids further back, so they've been reaching to people and staying relevant for 40 years.
Yeah, and I think that they have always been very smart with technology. I mean, starting with when they had that video game back in the day, the arcade game.
Right.
You know, they were never afraid. You know, the Disney ride, you know, they were never afraid to go, hey, you know, this is where things are going and we got to get in on this or we're going to get left behind. You know, same thing with Guitar Hero and, you know, just, it's incredible. It's incredible.
But they've managed to stay on the forefront of the curve.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And stay relevant. Where a lot of bands, like let me just say the Eagles, for instance, they have their crowd. You know, people from the '60s, I mean the '70s and the '80s, and then that's their crowd, and they're still coming to see their shows. But you know, Aerosmith's crowd is 40 years in the making. You know, you got the kids and the older people, so their demographic is a lot wider than a lot of these other bands, and their staying power. It's made their staying power stronger. You know.
Yeah. And I think you just explained it really well. You know, 70s, then reinventing in the 80s, then reinventing in the 90s. I mean, you know, all that stuff plays into it real big.
Yeah.
So now, at 9, you were studying music and stuff like that. When did you first get into rock and roll?
I'm trying to think of like the first bands that I was exposed to. You know, I grew up, my parents were, you know, we'd be listening to like Lawrence Welk, those types of shows on Saturday evenings or whatever in the house, you know, and my father was really into like, I want to say, not disco, but yeah, kind of disco. We used to watch like Dance Fever and all that. It's when that was really popular. And, you know, and my first real turn to rock was probably the exposure to the Monkees, you know, back when those guys, when they were on TV, you know what I mean? We used to watch those all the time. And me and my buddies, we all used to fight over who got to be Mickey, because Mickey was the cool guy. He was kind of the crack up, and he was the drummer, and he's wild and crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And then it probably morphed into, you know, as I got a little older in the 70s, you know, 70s was my period of growing up. So when it came to the end of the 70s, I was really into Kiss, because that was, you know, they were huge, and they were like larger than life, you know, and that was like the bridgeway into everything else musically was from them. You know, I really got heavy into the Beatles and British music after that, and Led Zeppelin and The Who and the Clash that was coming out around that time, and you know, and AC/DC had just, you know, come out with Back in Black, and they were just, you know, their albums were being heard in America all of a sudden, so they were huge, and like that early 80s influence of like really hard rock was like really what I sunk my teeth into, you know, which is funny because the early 80s, Aerosmith had fallen off the scene.
Right, 82 was not a good year.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, and Steven had got into that motorcycle accident, and he was out of commission, and the drugs were really taking their toll, and Perry was out doing the Perry Project, and that started off great, but the drugs were killing that. And, you know, so my first exposure to Aerosmith wasn't until like 85 when the Done With Mirrors thing came out. Everybody used to talk about Aerosmith and, you know, say how great they were, and, you know, but I had never really heard anything or seen anything, you know, publicly about them being good, and you couldn't really go see them. I heard that like they canceled a lot of shows on the Rock Hard Place tour, you know, and then when the Back on the Saddle thing happened, and that was kind of, you know, Tim Collins getting the band back together. It was with help from WBCN. I think Mark Parento had a hand in that as well, and numerous other people. But getting that band back together, and I remember on BCN, the local radio station here, they were hyping the shit out of that. They were just really, and so all of a sudden Aerosmith was this big thing, you know, and they played a couple of shows at the Orpheum Theater on New Year's Eve. They did like 3 nights there or something that were sold out, and it was like the biggest thing.
Those videos are out on YouTube, man.
Yeah. And I didn't get to go to that, but man, if you didn't get to go to that, you sure wished you had, because the hype was so huge. And then they went out with the Done With Mirrors tour, and I made sure that I caught them like 3 or 4 times on that tour. Yeah, and that was the beginning of my kind of...
Ted Nugent opened that tour,
At one point, the Nuge opened up for him, and when I first saw them, it was at Sullivan Stadium, the Patriots Stadium. It was called Sullivan Stadium back then, and who was playing with them? Yngwie Malmsteen was playing with them, and Keel. And I'll never forget the show, because Yngwie Malmsteen was so far away from what Aerosmith is.
Yeah.
You know, he's an amazing talent himself, but he, you know, in New England, these kind of really arrogant, showboaty kind of guys,
Yes.
they don't go over well. You know what I mean?
Right.
So here,
right.
this guy comes out and he's flipping his hair back like the prima donna that, you know, he's coming off to be, and he's throwing his guitar around his neck and he's catching it and he's doing all these shreddy runs, and the people were kind of like laughing at him.
Really?
You know? And I just remember when Aerosmith took the stage. I mean, they looked like they were, you know, a little bit under the weather, but still in fine form. But Joe Perry comes out and he starts mocking Yngwie. All right, he starts trying to throw his guitar behind his back, and he's stumbling all over the place. It was hysterical. But I mean, it was true testament to the nature of New Englanders. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't want to see somebody that's real arrogant and pompous, and you know, we just don't have any stomach for that, really. You know.
Good for that.
So, you know, that's just the way it was.
Okay, so if you know, you're talking mid '80s when you really got into them. At what point did you realize you look like Steven Tyler?
Well, I used to always get teased about it, and I
As
used
a
to
kid, like young teens, or
young teens, because I've always really had, you know, from probably like sixth grade on, I've always really had like long hair, and the kids like, oh, you look like Steven Tyler, and to be honest with you, in around the Done with Mirrors era, or that time, Aerosmith was not looked on too favorably. They were really known for like doing hard drugs, getting in accidents, like car accidents.
Yeah, promoters didn't want to touch them.
They were real risk, and you know, they looked to be almost criminal, and hence the nickname the Bad Boys of Boston, right? So it wasn't too flattering at that particular time to be associated with Aerosmith.
Interesting.
You know, and it wasn't until that they sobered up and they reinvented themselves with Permanent Vacation and Pump that all of a sudden the tables switched, you know, for me anyways, you know. And all of a sudden looking like Steven Tyler was a really good thing, you know.
Yeah.
As opposed to back in around the Done with Mirrors, it wasn't looked on as being a good thing. You look like that drug addict Steven Tyler, you know, that guy's a criminal, he's a jerk, you know. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, you look like that rock star, Steven Tyler. You know, you really resemble this rock god, you know. Like, so it went from night and day in that respect, you know, which is kind of funny.
Now, at what point did you say, hey, I look like Steven Tyler? I mean, obviously I read before in your bio how you work with his vocal coach and stuff like that. Was it I believe I read Draw the Line was formed for 2 months before you won a lookalike contest.
Yeah, the way it worked is when I was just starting school, Northeast, I was saying to myself, well, you know, what I want to do is become a musician. I really wanted to become a musician, and I really wanted to front a band. That was my thing. I'm a very dramatic person, and I'm good being out front, and I can hold an audience, and I'm, you know, kind of that guy. So I needed to learn to sing. So what I did was I started vocal lessons at the Conservatory of Music in Hingham, the Conservatory of Music in Hingham, and I started taking vocal lessons, classical vocal lessons. And then at that time, while I was doing that, my friends convinced me to enter this lookalike that for promotion for a radio station that the local radio, WAS was sponsoring, and so I went down and I did that, and I ended up winning this contest, and I ended up backstage in Aerosmith meeting Steven Tyler for the first time. That was 1990, and so it was all kind of. It's funny how the way timeline of this worked out, but it seems like one thing was feeding the other. Like it was my desire to be a singer, so the incidents of winning this contest and going to meet Steven Tyler, and then shortly after that, this opportunity for this band called Mass Production, which was a local cover band slash Aerosmith tribute band. They were a lot of Aerosmith songs, but other blues songs from the Rolling Stones and Guns N' Roses, all in that vein. And their singer was leaving, and this opportunity was coming up, and their singer had been studying with this guy, Mark Baxter. And so these guys had heard of me, and they had done an audition. I went down and I'm still a little green as far as my singing goes, but they saw the potential of it, and they asked me to join the band. So, and that was, he's a big guy, Murph Cat was his name, you know, short for Murphy. And he's like, look, I have to leave this band. I don't want to leave this band, but I have to leave this band because I got a great job offer that I take, and I can no longer. He's like, I want you to go to this guy, Mark Baxter. He's training, and he's the guy you need to go see. So he hooked me up with Mark and started taking the vocals. And I joined this band in 1991, and it was 2 months after I got in the band that we renamed the band Draw the Line. And that's where it all started.
And then, how did you come up with the name of the band?
Well, I joined the band and then Mass Production. And, you know, we started showcasing ourselves to different agents as strictly an Aerosmith tribute band. And this big agency that was handling a lot of the bigger name tribute acts at the time, some of them you may remember. One was called Graffiti, a Zeppelin tribute band, and The Machine, which was Pink Floyd. Yeah, they're still around, but they were amazing bands, doing very well, and we definitely wanted to get in with that agency. So we got a showcase with that agent. The first thing you need to do is change your name from Mass Production, because nobody's going to associate with you. So that's what we did. We got together, and we had a band meeting on it. I put the name Draw the Line. I saw the potential market, and in a sense of making the character, we look a lot like Aerosmith. That we could make a similar character to the Hirschfeld caricature of Aerosmith, and use that for some of our promotion. And everybody else had some ideas. I think Vacation was another name, and Pump was another name, but we decided in the end to go with Draw the Line. And people ask me a lot of times why you picked Draw the Line, because it's probably the most infamous album in the sense is the album that broke the band up, and the drug reference to Draw the Line. Why do you want to put that in the band? Well, I mean, bad publicity is good publicity. You know what I mean? It's all it's iconic in the sense of that caricature, and everybody associates that that phrase with Aerosmith. I think it's one of their most identifiable phrases.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Now the catalog, you got tell me how much of the catalog Draw the Line does.
It depends. Right now we probably know about 60 or 70 songs that we could play out at any given time, but we tend to rotate songs in different years. Trying to think of a song that was in the set last year. Like Adam's Apple was in the set last year. Mm-hmm. So we may not do that this year. We've been playing No More, No More. Oh,
love that song.
Yeah, no, it's great. We've been playing Lightning Strikes, which we haven't done in a long time. Yeah, and some songs like that, and so we try and rotate them. So they'll kind of fall out of the rotation, and then we'll get some of these old songs from the newer albums. When I say newer, I say like Permanent Vacation, Forward. We tend to just play the hits on those albums. We don't really go so deep into the cuts on that. We tend to go really deep on the cuts on the first 5 albums.
Which makes sense.
Those are the songs that, and those are the ones that everybody wants to hear,
right?
And those are the ones that we really want to play as well.
Yeah.
So,
did you guys learn anything off of the latest album, Music from Another Dimension?
Yeah, we did. We were playing. What's the name of the song? I can't. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Was it, oh yeah?
No, it wasn't. Oh yeah, it was. I can't believe I can't. It's not coming to me. The chorus repeats over and over and over again.
Out Go the Lights.
Love her a lot. Love her a lot.
Oh, great tune! And I can
playing,
see you guys doing
we were playing
that.
Love Her a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to play. But I would preface the song before we played it by saying this is a new album. This is from the new album, Music from Another Dimension. This is a rock and cut off that album, and it really sounds old school and defines Aerosmith. And we play it, and people were just kind of like, yeah, it's okay, it's a good, and we played it for like 6 months to a year, and then we had to kind of drop it because people just, there's so many other songs that people would rather hear.
It's weird how that happens, and
Yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying. And, I used to DJ for years and years, doing parties and weddings, and I don't care who the artist was, and I'm going to name very commercial artists because of the type of DJing I was doing. I don't care if it was Springsteen or Whitney Houston or Janet Jackson. You could do the same thing, explain, this is brand new from Whitney Houston. They didn't care. Because unless they knew it, they had to know the song first. And I imagine that's kind of similar to what you were running into with Love Her a Lot.
Well, it became a choice of whether we're playing Love Her a Lot or we're going to play a song like Seasons of Wither.
Yeah.
And the majority of people would be like, yeah, we would much rather hear Seasons of Wither or, Sick as a Dog or something really deep like that as opposed to, a newer song. I mean, there's certain songs that we have to play every night. And that wasn't one of them. So it would be in the set in conjunction with the deeper cuts that we'd throw in, or like a Rats in the Cellar or Lord of the Thighs. We'd have to cut one of those songs in order to put the new songs in. That's the hardest part, is making the set list because there's so
every
many
song
songs,
you just named about cut, and I'd be like, oh, don't cut that one, don't cut Sick as a Dog.
That's the thing.
So I totally get that. Now, so how many times have you seen Aerosmith all together now? Do you know?
God, it was so many times. It was for one point in like the 90s, that I felt like I was seeing them every week, you know what I mean? Because they played a lot of shows, and I was very in on the scene back in the early 90s. So I got to go to a lot of these things firsthand and go back, I had all access, availability to me. So I was able to go to all these shows, and it was amazing. And then, so not as many since then. That carried up through the 2000s, and but I'd say they haven't been around as much over the last 5 years. And I think the last time I saw them was down in Atlantic City, one of the casinos down there.
2010.
What's that?
2010.
Maybe it was that, yeah.
And the reason I asked, well, they were playing in the big hall down there, whatever the hall was. Not a casino, but like Boardwalk Hall or something like that.
Right. That's it. Yep.
Okay, because, all right, let me backtrack a little bit. 2002, I'm seeing Aerosmith, Kid Rock, Run DMC in Camden, New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
I got my daughters with me, and I'm in the second row. My daughters at the time were 7 and 6. They had already seen Aerosmith once, so this was not their first trip to see Aerosmith. And you're standing right next to me. Now, I had no idea who you were, okay? I had heard of the band, but I look over and I said, man, this guy looks like Steven Tyler. It's amazing. And I said to myself, Steven Tyler doesn't have a brother. Can't be his brother. Who is this guy? Now, I actually have a video from that show that's taken.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, and dude, it's right off the board, so you don't hear crowd noise, nothing. It is like pristine sound, pristine, video and everything. And awesome. After like maybe the third song, Steven looks down at you and he goes, "That's for you, for you, my brother. And pointed right at you. And I'm like, okay, so Steven knows who this guy is, but I'm like, who the fuck is this guy, you know? So finally after the show, I asked somebody, they said, that's Neill Byrnes from Draw the Line. I said, oh, okay, well then that puts it all in perspective. So, you know, it was weird. I was standing next to you the entire concert, you know, sneaking peeks going, man, it's amazing. This cat really does look like him. You know, Steven knows who he is and whatever. Now, that being said, I had never ever been a fan of tribute bands, cover bands, and especially Aerosmith because I love Aerosmith so much.
Right.
My girlfriend, who I had met at an Aerosmith show in 2004, her and her girlfriends used to go see you guys all the time. And I'd be like, I'm not interested. Maybe when Aerosmith's dead, I'll go see these guys. But it's, you know, and nothing personal. It was just the way it was, you know. But in 2010, you guys played on the boardwalk outside across from...
right.
Okay, there was like a big boardwalk
the theater,
party.
That hall, yep.
Yeah, and that's the first time I saw you, and man, did I have a blast. I'm out there dancing, and I don't dance. You know, I said, these guys are freaking good, man. This guy's got Tyler nailed. He's got the harmonica nailed. He's got the moves nailed. I said, these guys are damn good. And I love the way that you guys conveniently show up around where they're playing. It's brilliant marketing. You know, if Aerosmith's playing, you guys are in a bar next door doing maybe a matinee and then doing a late show after they're done, or down there the night before, whatever, you know. So extremely smart. And while I'm on that subject with my girlfriend, I want to thank you because I guess it had to be maybe 2003. I'm not really sure. I'd have to check with her. But her and her girlfriends were at a Draw the Line show. Everybody having a good time. And they got to know you guys a little bit. And they had to go back to their car. And your bass player and one of your guitar players says, no, you girls can't walk. It's too late. It could be dangerous. They gave them a ride back to their car. They were perfect gentlemen. So it's been years, but thank those guys.
I definitely will. That's cool.
Because they took good care. And I said, that's classy. They didn't try to, you know, take advantage of you and all that. They looked out and said, no, ladies, you know, come on, let us give you a ride. Our car's right here, you know. So I said, well, you know, it was really, really nice of the guys to do that. So, but, you know, as I said, I saw the band and I was really impressed. I was like, you know, they can totally nail it, you know.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Definitely good. Now, watching some of your videos, one of the things I've noticed is, well, first let me ask you this. How much time do you spend, or how much time do you have to spend studying Steven Tyler, practicing the dance moves, practicing the mannerisms, all those sorts of things?
It's ongoing. You know, it's like a weekly thing. It's a job. I practice singing all during the week. I'm watching video. I'm working on specific moves. You know, I'm thinking of what I'm going to do at certain points in certain songs, what I'm going to be doing with the Joe Perry character and how he's going to move. I mean, it's ever evolving, you know, and it's funny because they got 40 years of material to research, you know. So, and some of the diehard fans, you know, will know when I do a specific movement from, say, 1977.
I would be one of them. Yes.
Right. You'll see something that I do from, like, either with my hands or something that I would do that would be something that he did in 1977,
right,
or something he's doing now. You know, and I kind of, you know, like he does, but, you know, it's all conglomerated together. Like, I'll do certain things during the night that's from the 70s, something from 2000s, the 2010s. You know, I add it all in there, and I try and seamlessly conglomerate it together so it works for the whole song and it stays true to him, you know?
Yeah, and that you do, because I was watching a video today of you, and I don't remember what it was, but you were dancing around your guitar player, your Joe Perry guy, and I'm like, he's got this fucking nailed. That's exactly what Steven does, you know?
Yeah.
You know, that whole, like, circling around Joe with the arms and stuff. I say, he's got this down to a science, man. So it's obvious.
And I'm saying to myself, and Joe Perry's going, this guy is such a fucking asshole. Why is he doing this to me? That animosity on stage that fuels them,
Right.
You got to create that,
But it's interesting that you say it's always evolving because, first time I saw Aerosmith was 76 in Madison Square Garden here in New York City. I was out of my mind. It was like 12 years old. It was like, I saw God, and
that must have been one of the first times they played Madison Square Garden.
I believe it was their first headlining tour
Yeah.
there. I think they had opened. I think they opened for someone there on a tour before, but that might have been downstairs. They have a theater downstairs in the Garden.
Oh, okay.
But I think this was their first headlining tour there. Rocks had been out for 7 days.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Whoop.
Rocks had just come out, and back in the 70s, you didn't have internet, you couldn't download it, all that sort of thing. And so I hadn't even heard anything off of Rocks, and I remember they did Sick as a Dog that night. So that was like,
wow.
Oh, it was like, they came out doing Mama Kin, they did Sick as a Dog, and they ended with Train Kept It Rolling, and did a lot of stuff, obviously off the first 3 albums, but it's just something you never ever forget.
That must have been that's history. That's that band coming of age.
Yeah.
And they were hungry. They weren't. They're just starting to get that level of fame, and to be there at that point in their career, that's a special moment. But for any band,
Yeah.
For any band,
Now back to the moves. I have noticed, because I study Steven and the whole band constantly, if you look back, and I got to choose my words carefully here, even though I mean no disrespect to Steven whatsoever, as they've gotten older, there's definitely a little bit of a slowdown factor.
Yeah.
Where I've noticed he's more with the body and less with the really running around. He works that catwalk up and down, but if you watch, I was watching something from '94 a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, wow, look at the whole band, the energy. The guys are running all over the place, going crazy.
Right.
And it's not that they're slackers now. It seems like they've channeled it into different body movements, so to speak.
Well, it's physically. Joe Perry's had a couple of knee replacement surgeries.
Yeah.
Steven Tyler's had knee replacement surgeries. His feet, he's got those hammer toes. He's got really bad.
Yeah.
So he can't even run around. I can't even imagine the pain that they go through just putting on the show as it is now. It just must be excruciating for these guys on some nights. And the fact that they're still out there doing it regardless is a testament to their drive and their passion for it, But yeah, they can't run around like they used to. And because of all that running around, see, I think in like the early 90s, 94, Aerosmith was at their peak game live.
That they were.
There isn't a band out there that could touch those guys. Mm-hmm. Even today, before or since then, at that particular point in their career, they were just phenomenal. I mean, it was amazing what they were doing. And, today, now it's become more about the flow of the music and the movement of the music, not so much the running around. But now they have to transfer the energy through movements while they're more stationary.
Exactly. Well put, Neil. Well put. And it works. To the average fan, you wouldn't know the difference. It's just like you were saying before, you would throw in a move from the 70s that I might recognize. Same thing with them. I'm like, okay, the average person's not going to recognize this. I recognize it. But you put it perfectly. It's like, they're still moving. It's just in a different way.
And that's where the help of the video comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because the video has helped make it, brought the MTV sort of generation. It brought Aerosmith to the MTV generation where there's an image change like every 5 seconds, or 3 seconds, whatever it is, 30 seconds, But now, they're doing those movements, right, stationary, but it's going from Joe Perry to Steven Tyler to Joey Kramer, and instantly on the video, and they have those huge video screens. So that's how they compensate for it now. But through the help of the video and their limitations physically, they're still able to convey that energy that music encompasses, and it's still an extraordinary experience going to see them live.
Oh, it is. I freak every time. I've seen them 110 times, and I still freak every time. What was it? 2000? Where are we at? 2013 was it? The tour right before Music from Another Dimension came out. So that came out in November. So that summer that preceded that, I saw them in Nassau Coliseum, Philadelphia. Nassau Coliseum, I'm out at the end of the catwalk, and all of a sudden, Steven and Joe just come out of the floor in a cloud of smoke. They bang in to draw the line, and I'm going to myself, oh my God, as if this is as exciting as the very first time I saw them. I can't believe that they're still doing this to me,
Right.
Because they just still got it. I mean, they come out. My little joke with people, I go, listen, you could go see Aerosmith, leave after the first song, and you got your money's worth. Because when they hit the stage so badass on that first song that,
right.
So, them
Absolutely.
coming out like that, I was just like, oh my God, I was like, I was blown away all over again,
That is so awesome, It's so cool that they're still able to do it after all these years. And, I know Steven had a bunch of ailments in the 2000, and he seems right now to be pretty healthy, because from what I've seen him on stage, he's moving pretty good.
Yeah.
Minus the foot issues and the knee issues. But his energy seems to be there, and who knows how long they can go on for. As long as they're taking care of themselves, you're going to have to drag those guys off the stage. You realize that, kicking and screaming.
Me and my Aero friends talk about this all the time. When's it going to end? How's it going to end? And Neil, you take somebody like me that got into them in 1975. Here we are, 2014. They're still around. And I used to take shit in school from people. Aerosmith sucks. Everybody was into Zeppelin and Frampton and Skinner, which are all great bands, But people, they suck, I'm like, well, who's laughing now? And people to this day still crack on me. And I'm like, look, it's no different than if you're a Boston Red Sox fan. You love that team all the way through. But with
the good and the bad years,
Right. But when you go see the Boston Red Sox, they might win, they might lose. You don't know. You go see Aerosmith, they're going to be good. So you're winning right away, Right. And another thing I say is, look, Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, whatever sports team, they're going through people as the years go by. These are the same five guys.
Same guys.
And I don't know of any other band that can make that claim. I mean, some people say Rush, and it's like, okay, but Rush is a three-piece,
Right.
But I don't know of one other band that has all five original members in it that's still going strong like they are.
That's crazy because of the amount of people that are in the band. There's five guys in the band. Bands don't last usually more than 5 years.
Right, that's
tops.
Right.
You know what I mean? So to be able to work through, and God knows we know they've had their problems, right? But I mean, what relationship doesn't? Whether it's a brother in your family or a marriage, or you're going to have all these battles through the years as well as the good times, and these guys, I think, can still look at the big picture, and say, we create this entity as a group. Individually we're not as strong, but together as a group we can create this entity that affects so many people and means so much to so many people. The power of the entity is so great that we have to overlook our personal differences to make it happen, because it's making a huge difference in people's lives.
And you're right, and I've heard them basically say those kinds of things, and I think they learned their lesson back in the 80s when Joe and Brad left and they put everything back together. Now, I don't think they're stupid, they're not stupid. They're not going to blow it. They're not going to blow the big entity over stupid little personality,
No. but I also have to say to them too, you've been doing this, guys, for 40 years. You deserve a break as well.
Yeah.
So nobody can be mad at them for taking a year off to do some other things. I mean, they've given us, the fans, all this enjoyment for 40 years.
Right.
We gotta cut them some slack as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? Go on vacation for a year, or go pursue like selling coffee, like Joey Kramer, or race your cars, Brad, or be on American Idol, or write a solo album. We should be, encouraging them to do other things. You know what I mean? Because they've been giving us all their, together, that whole thing, the Aerosmith thing, for so long.
Yeah, that is true. And, I got to be honest with you. It's like when that day comes, it's no more. It's going to be a sad day for me because, all these years of my life, they have been a part of it. There was only two times. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're right. It is going to be a sad day. But you know what? I can honestly say that those guys have gone well and beyond as far as, entertaining people.
Right.
And together, they're like kind of like, Kiss is still going, doing it, and still entertaining people. And the Rolling Stones, they're still out there entertaining people, and they don't owe us anything. We've given, even though we've given them the support, over the 40 years, we've always been for them. We've always, verbally stuck up for them and attended the shows and bought their records and T-shirts or whatever. But they don't owe us anything. They've given us 40 years of enjoyment through rock and roll, and it's amazing. And, it is going to be a sad day when they hang it up. But, they're not leaving. I will never feel like they owe me something or that I'm gypped, that I didn't get to hear them, come out with a better album. Say like, when the Jim Morrison died, a lot of people felt gypped because their best stuff had yet to come, or Hendrix. You know what I mean? Like they felt like this guy left me, and I don't feel like I've gotten the best out of him yet. I think we've been fortunate to get the best from Aerosmith.
I agree.
What I mean?
I agree. I feel very much complete, and it's funny when I go to see them. I always treat every show like it's my last, because you never know.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Something could happen to them. Something could happen to me. Yeah. But I feel the same way. I mean, I've got to meet them multiple times. All this great stuff. So I'm like, they don't owe me anything.
No.
And at the end of the day, you see all this bullshit on Facebook with, Steven had blueberries for breakfast and this, that, I don't care. At the end of the day, all I care about is I want to see the band. So when the band tours, the rest of the bullshit, I don't care. I mean, look, I caught a lot of shit when he was on American Idol. Everybody's like, oh, your man's on American Idol. Blah, 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 blah. But then within a couple of weeks, people were like, hey, you guys pretty good on American Idol. I'm like, there it is.
Right. He's making it interesting, and he's not changing who he is to be on the show. Right. You know what I mean? He's bringing Steven Tyler. He's bringing American Idol to Steven Tyler, not Steven Tyler to American Idol. That's the way I was looking at that.
Yeah. So I've caught a fair amount of crap through the years of Aerosmith, and I'm like, I'm sorry, where's your band? Is your band still around? You tell me. So.
Yeah, that people don't think like that a lot of times. But, these guys, when they came out in the 70s, all those early 70s, late 60s bands, early 60s bands, those bands are the Mozarts, the Beethovens, the Ludwigs of their time, of the rock and roll thing. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
These are the guys, when you were looking 50 years down the road from now, you're going to know, when rock and roll was popular, there was this band called Aerosmith. Do you think they're going to remember like Poison or Rat or, granted, maybe they were great at what they did, but are they going to remember those guys? I just don't. It's going to be a secondary name because it came after. You know what I mean? It came after the original group of bands. Like it came after Led Zeppelin and The Who and, Aerosmith and Jimi Hendrix and, all those bands. So those guys were the guys that created it. They took folk music, they took blues, they took jazz, and they morphed it into contemporary rock and roll. And, where it is today is so far away from where it was when it developed. You know, today it's like really, it's become so watered down.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of really rock and roll, and that's why, you know, you can't. I say name me 10 bands today. I mean, I couldn't do it. You know, because well, maybe I could, but I mean, they're not going to be rememberable bands.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're going to be gone, and when they're gone, another 10 generic bands will come in, and you'll remember them for 2 years, and then the next come in. There isn't going to be the guys that created it. There isn't going to be like James Brown. Like everybody's raving about that kid that what's his name? Bruno Mars.
Yeah.
Fantastic talent, brutal, but he's James Brown.
I noticed that too on the Super Bowl. Yeah.
He's James Brown. He's Prince. He's Michael Jackson. He's influenced by all those guys, but it's already been done.
Right.
It's already been done and done to perfection by those people. You know what I mean? So
I do. And when you talk about some of these '80s bands, it was always my theory that these bands never went back past Aerosmith. It's like so many of them copped, Motley, and I like these bands, don't get me wrong, but Motley and Rat, especially Cinderella, all stealing Aerosmith's act, okay? But then when you would listen to the records, you're like, you know what? These guys did not go back past Aerosmith. They did not go back and find out, where did Aerosmith get this from? The blues, the classical, all the influences that you're talking about, and that's what made for such shitty 80s music, in my opinion.
I am not an 80s fan. I'll be on the record of saying that. I felt it was very soulless music. I felt it took what the magnificence of the 70s and it watered it down.
Mm-hmm.
Not every band, but the majority of them. But exactly what you're saying. They didn't go back and listen to the funk of James Brown,
right?
Or they don't add a shuffle like the Rolling Stones had a shuffles.
They're just trying to imitate Aerosmith, but in order to imitate Aerosmith right or get influenced by them right, you got to go back and find out where Aerosmith got it from.
You have to, and a lot of these guys grew up on jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And they had ninth chords and seventh chords, and everything was played in a minor key, and those guys did not do that. Those elements, everything was like in a major key, and it was power chords. Like, I think Kiss might have a lot to do with that. You know what I mean? Because their songs were very easy, although catchy melodically. They owe a lot to the Beatles. Even the 80s bands, they took what Kiss did and they watered it down.
Right.
They just took the power chords, the thing that gave it energy, and created songs out of that, and fueled by, cocaine and greed.
Mm-hmm.
It just made very soulless music,
Yeah, soulless. That's it was.
Opinion,
I mean, I don't want to name bands, but man, it started getting real bad. With some of these, one-hit wonder bands, and just, it's like if you had long hair and good looking, MTV put you on, and it didn't matter if you were any good or not.
But these guys were great musicians. Don't get me wrong; they were fantastic.
A lot of them were, yes.
But I just think the music, in its sense, and maybe it was a product of the times, that it just ended up being, and that's when the corporate thing really started kicking in as well.
Yeah.
They'd have like a band come out, say when Motley Crue came out with their Looks a Kill album, and then the next thing you know, you got all these bands like following that formula.
Right.
Like they did with, Pearl Jam. You had all these copycat bands following the formula. So you had Pearl Jam, which was kind of new and relevant with Nirvana, and then you'd have bands like Creed, and like it would just get watered down and watered down.
And now you got Nickelback.
And who cares? It's horrible. Oh God, I can't listen to it.
I hear you.
It's just not the same.
I'm the same way.
And then the internet's got something to do with that, because before, there was 3 channels of TV to watch. So what else did you do when the sun went down? If you weren't outside for the day, you come inside and you play your instrument, and you did that all through the winter, in the fall, because there was nothing to watch on TV. You weren't encapsulated by, like the internet, and you could be on that thing for hours on Facebook or whatever. You played an instrument because
Right.
that's what, and you would really master your craft at an early age, and you'd listen to records. You'd put
Yeah.
on jazz records and blues records and, country records and, bands like the Everly Brothers and, all this
Yeah.
great stuff. And those guys created rock and roll music out of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and
And
the
that's
kids
not what
today,
happened to me.
I hate to sound old, but the kids today, they have no
But
concept of
kids
that.
today, I know.
No concept of an album. I mean, my kids are like, an album? Well, what am I supposed to do with this? You know?
All right, now I consider myself a pretty cool dad, all right? And my kids will be listening to something. I'll be like, no, you got to check this out. And I would turn them on to something from the 70s, or the 60s. And they'd be like, whoa, that's so much better than what this is. I'm like, you ain't seen nothing yet, kid, this, and, turning them on, they think that's rebellious, some of this music. I'm like, guys, you can never be as rebellious as it was in like the 70s and the 80s and, the 60s,
Right.
That era's gone,
Right. Yeah, I'm a pretty cool dad too, and I've taught my kids well, but they still have their own opinions as to what they listen to and that sort of thing. But, I hear you. Sometimes I'll get in the car, I'll go, what the hell is this? I taught you better than that,
Right. Oh, God.
But then sometimes they'll discover something, they'll go, hey, you know what they've discovered a lot of stuff from is all these Xbox games that, songs get put into. They're like, Dad, you ever hear this song? Whatever. I'm like, yeah, what, are you kidding me? I'm like, how did you know that? Because that doesn't get played on the radio. And they're like, oh, it's in this new Xbox 360 game and blah, blah, blah. So, that's another great way that bands are turning these kids on to that stuff.
Right, through the video games. And that's awesome. Because the guys that are inventing them, putting them together, or the people in power are your and my age now.
Right.
So they get to make the final decisions on what music go in these things.
Which kind of scares me, knowing that our peers are the people in power. Now all of a sudden pots get legalized everywhere. It's like, yeah, it's getting crazy, but in a good way. In a good way. So now what is next for Draw the Line? I know the legacy thing that you're working on. Now let me ask you a question. Is this a full-time gig for you?
No, everybody needs to have another job as well, because in the winter it slows down.
Yeah.
So you need to have something that's flexible, but otherwise you'll be in real trouble because we don't sell records. We don't have royalties coming in, that alternate source of income. All we have is the show.
Right.
So if we don't have shows, then nobody's making money, and everybody's kind of needs a secondary source of income to make sure that they have something coming in. So a lot of guys do it musically. They'll play. A lot of guys will do it musically and play in other bands, or teach, or some guys just work part-time jobs that are flexible and that sort of thing.
You could do psychology on the side.
I tried doing it for years. I couldn't do it.
I was talking to one of my producers today, telling him I was doing this tonight, and I was reading him your bio, and we're like, yeah, well, maybe he does psychology on the side. We're like, can you imagine you go in with your problems and you sit down and there's this Steven Tyler looking guy, and you're like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, we wouldn't get much work done, I bet. Right?
Yeah. I'm like, well, maybe if he does that, he's got to pull the hair back and put some glasses on or something. Who knows?
Not for nothing, Jay, but after I finished college, I worked at a hospital for a while as a counselor, and it was a problem. I would go, because here I am, I was doing the band, and this was my flexible part-time gig, and I'd be working on a ward that these people had come in, and they had to be hospitalized, and they'd start, calling me Steven Tyler, and they start thinking I'm Steven Tyler, and it's making their problems worse. You know what I mean? Because now they're like hyper focusing on me. So,
right.
It's funny you say that because that actually did happen.
Interesting.
So I, that was part of the reason I'm like, I can't do this. I can't be involved. Now,
do you have siblings, and or do your parents have the same facial features, structures, the Tyler look?
It's funny you should ask. On my father's side of the family, there's virtually no resemblance at all. There's a stronger resemblance on my mother's side of the family. So I think I've inherited most of the genes from my mother's side of the family, which is common for boys. Boys usually inherit their mother's genes. So, but I don't have any siblings through my mother and father. I'm an only child in that sense. My father had a son from a previous marriage. If you put us side by side, we look nothing alike. At all. Nothing. You would be like, those two aren't related. So, I mean, it's peculiar.
Yeah. So what's on tap for? I saw a few tour dates. I mean, obviously, I would imagine the big thing is the Whiskey A Go Go thing coming up. That's got to be the big gig.
Well, that's we're going to Houston this weekend for a private thing, but the focus right now is on the 3rd, because that's going to be a big show for us. It's going national. It's going to spread the word to Draw the Line, which is great. Get it out to people that haven't heard of the band, and hopefully open up some new markets for us so we can get out there and bring Aerosmith to the places that don't get to see Aerosmith. It's one thing I pride ourselves on, is that we play places that are out of the way sometimes, and they don't
much
get
like Aerosmith.
Exposed. Yeah, but I mean, they'll go to like Bismarck, North Dakota, and we'll go even deeper to some sort of podunk town that it can't even get to Bismarck. So, I mean, to be able to bring that to them is, an amazing thing, and that's what we're continuing to do. So hopefully this will help us catapult that a little further into those areas,
Well, I hope it does for you. I really do. I mean, first of all, I'd like to see you guys working and not have to deal with the part-time job stuff.
Yeah.
Especially if you're breaking into other countries. I could clearly see it happening,
That's always been the goal. But the music business ebbs and flows. One year you're really popular and the market's great, and then as the recession hit, people just didn't have the money to risk putting on live shows, because putting on a live show is a risk.
Oh, yeah.
You're not guaranteed ticket sales. It could rain. It could there could be a world event. You know what I mean? It's you just never know what's going to happen. So it's always a risk. So the better the economy's doing, the better, of course, everybody's doing, and we're just like everybody else. We're just working stiffs, and we suffer just like everybody else. And, so as the economy is starting to get a little better, our calendar's looking a lot fuller. I'm expecting a very big summer. We have a lot of things lined up for the Midwest, and I want to say down south as well. We'll be going back down south into the Carolinas and into Florida. I know we're in Florida in April. We're trying to get things going with some more Texas stuff, and in Minnesota as well. So we're hoping to get that going so we can reach out to those areas again. And we don't get out to the West Coast enough, because we'd love to get out there some more, and Europe for the fall and the winter next year. So it looks to be a very exciting year for us, and I just can't wait to get out there. I look forward to every show, and and I can't wait to see people that we haven't seen in a long time, and some loyal, dedicated Draw the Line fans.
Oh, that you do, because I see it on Facebook, and I see it when I'm at the shows. It's like people are extremely loyal to your band, extremely.
We've been very lucky with that.
Yeah, it's great to be loved like that, man. But you guys are good, because I honestly, if I went to see you and I thought you sucked, I would have been like, see, they sucked. The hell with this. But I was I said, I was out there dancing, Neil. I don't dance.
We'll get you singing next time.
Yeah. Now back to England for a second. How do you guys land up booking gigs over there? How does it come about that you book a gig there?
Well, it just ends up being like a one-off. You know what I mean? There was a couple of dates that we did over there a few years back, and it was like a special thing. Like we did something over in Denmark over the summer. Like it was a what do I want to say? It's not a promotional thing, but a showcase kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They invited us over to do a showcase, so we went over there and showcased the act, and we played a couple gigs, and to get interest for buyers. They were small clubs, but it was just to get interest to do bigger things, and that's where we think that we're going to line up this tour through Scandinavia is just by going over and doing the smaller venues. And you know, we were over in Denmark, and they love Aerosmith over there. You know, and they love Americans coming over to do it because that's how it was done.
Right.
You know, these bands like ours exist over there, but you have, say, you know, an Italian band or like a German band singing Aerosmith, and it may sound good, but it just doesn't sound as authentic as the real deal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do,
So,
yeah, because I know there's a couple bands, you know, in other countries. I don't know a whole lot about them. You know, Aerosmith tribute bands, and yeah, it's interesting to me how, you know, they do sound and how they do.
There's a lot of good ones over there, and they're doing well, but it's just not the same. And one thing that we have going for us is not only are we American, but we are also from the same region from where they came from.
Yeah, that's got a lot to do with it, definitely.
It absolutely does, because, you know, creating this music, to recreate it, you kind of have to come from the same moral, cultural background as the people that created it. To have that, to know where they're coming from, and to play the instruments with the same feel and the same voicing as they play it. You can't get that. You can't say, you know, California has its own thing. It created, you know, the Eagles and Poison and Motley Crue, and, you know, that's not what happened on the East Coast. The East Coast was dirty. It was hard. It was a result of the times that were going on here, like the race riots and, you know, back in the early 70s, and, you know, I mean, it was a product of that whole thing. And you can't get that in other parts of the country. That same competitiveness, because of all the people that live in this area and the amount of competition that it creates, and the aggressiveness that are in the individuals up here in the East Coast, and how that's portrayed out through the music. You cannot, you can't teach that. It's either in you or it's not. And that's part of our success, because we're able to translate this music in the same way that they are, and in the same feel, and that's a big asset to us. I think,
that's an interesting point, and I agree 100%. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Perfect sense.
I've always felt that way. That's why if you go see a band from like the West Coast that does this versus a band from the East Coast, it's going to be way more authentic on the East Coast than it is the West Coast.
Yeah, I would tend to believe that. I definitely would. Now,
but it also works in reverse too. If I was going to see a Motley Crue band based in California, with the high singing and the whole thing, it's going to be way more authentic coming from California than it is coming from Maine.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
true. What's the biggest crowd you've ever played for?
It's been about 20,000 people.
Whoa! Where was that?
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. It was down in Florida. It was a show that we did with Night Ranger.
Okay.
And we went on before them, but to finish a song and have 20,000 people standing on their feet in ovation for what you just did. And that sense of power was the most most incredible thing that I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah,
it's funny, people. At that one point, you're like, I have control of the world. I could be the mad scientist. Because at that point, you have that audience and that you feel like you could get them to do anything, or they would listen to anything that you say, because you've connected with that many people. And it's the most amazing feeling I've ever had.
It must take 3 days to come down from something like that.
I'm still not down from that. Let me tell you that. That was a couple of years ago.
Now, sidebar here. Do you know the guys in Night Ranger?
Just, as acquaintances from that gig, and maybe in our travels, we play in the same circuits as a lot of these bands. Like we've done gigs with who's the guy from Bret Michaels, Dokken, all those kind of '80s bands.
Yeah.
We work in the same circles as those guys, and we share a lot of events with those guys. So.
Well, the reason I ask is because the guitar player, and I don't know his name, the guitar player in Night Ranger also plays on Rock of Ages on Broadway.
He does?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I met this guy here in New York who I was doing some work with, and he said to me, he says, "Listen, I gotta call it a day." He says, "I got a gig tonight," and I said, "Oh, where at?" He says, I'm doing some play called Rock of Ages. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I'm like, dude, the thing is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, it's huge. Well, he sits in for the guitar player in Night Ranger when Night Ranger is touring. So that's why I asked you about that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. That's
I don't know
do
him personally.
Huh?
I don't know him personally,
Yeah.
no. But yeah, that's a big show on Broadway.
Oh my
right?
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's big.
That's
and what
good.
I never realized is him, and I met the other guitar player. They were telling me that for each seat there, when I say seat, musician seats, there's at least a half a dozen subs because you got professional musicians. Like one guy plays guitar for Blondie. So when Blondie goes on tour, well, this guy can't do Rock of Ages, so this guy comes and sits in. And these guys make a pretty good buck, sitting in on Rock of Ages for these guys. But when you brought up Night Ranger, that's why I thought I'd ask, because I'm like, hey, I know a guy who sits in for their guitar player all the time.
Oh, wow. No, I'm sorry. No, I don't know him. When we saw them, I'm trying to think, it was their original lineup. And, yeah, no, he probably wasn't with the band. This is probably about 3 years ago that gig was. But we play a lot of gigs with those bands, and, the crowd, that was the biggest. It was 20,000 people, but a lot of these events that we play are, average around 10,000 people.
Wow.
And it's crazy.
That's a lot
really
of people.
Crazy.
That's concert size. That's not like playing in a bar, for 150 people. 10,000 people.
Right.
Damn. Yeah, that's got to be a hell of a feeling.
And it's not up in this neck of the woods. That doesn't happen a lot up here. We've played shows around here for 4,000 people. And we do a few club dates still here and there, but not many. And, whatever the club holds, 100 people, 200, 300 people. But around in New England, it's funny, they don't put on shows like they do in the Midwest. In the Midwest, they put on these awesome festival-type rock shows out there, and the cities will put them on, and I could never catch a town from where we live, like really putting on a rock show and getting the people out. Some of our towns around here are still very conservative, very Puritan still. They still hold on to a lot of those ideals, and so it's a very different animal when we go out to the Midwest. I love going out to the Midwest. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's cool. Same thing with, what was it, Rocklahoma. You ever hear of Rocklahoma?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I was like, see, what a great idea. You'd never get that around here. Even if you don't like the bands that are in it, the idea of a big festival like that, I'm like, this is a great idea. Why don't they do this around here?
Right. I agree. People would go berserk.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, back to your band for a second. The guys in your band, how long have they been in your band? Have you had different guys in the band? Give me a little bit about that.
Well, over the years, there's been a lot of people in the band. From when we first started to now, the band members do turn over. And reason being is that it's never been able to make a full-time living.
Right.
And it requires a lot of sacrifice.
Of
It
course.
requires you to go out and travel, hours at a time, driving to some of these places.
Which is a bitch. I've been there.
Yeah, and some people just don't have the personality for that or the makeup to be on the road for long periods of time.
Yeah.
You know, they get really antsy, and it just doesn't suit their personality. So we've had our turnover in the years, but that's primarily what kills it. You know, because I mean, it's not like they make their money. I mean, they get paid for everything they do, so it's not the issue of the money, but it may be that they don't make enough money consistently, or that they don't like the traveling, or they have a wife or a girlfriend who doesn't like them traveling.
Yeah, that's always a problem. That is always a problem. And that's why it's like and I tell guys this, guys that have bands and they got some girlfriend, I'm like, dude, you really want to make it? Don't think I'm cold, but ditch the chick.
Yeah,
If
right.
she really loves you, she'll be back for you. I'm like, but don't kill your dreams because some chick doesn't want you to go away. And my girlfriend will kill me when she hears me say that, but
Right.
it's
Well,
it's the
when
reality.
you're on stage, they want you,
Right.
and then once they get you, they don't want you back on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's the way it kind of works for a musician. Is that once they have you, they don't want to share you anymore. They don't want you entertaining people and other girls, making eyes at you and all that. They don't want that. They don't want to have to deal with that. It's very difficult to be in a relationship as a musician because of what the women have to put up with. But they have to know that getting involved with somebody that's in a band, because they have to know that there's going to be other people around all the time. There's always going to be these other women making eyes or even making passes at these guys. It's just part of being an entertainer. You're really making people feel good, on a subconscious level. So it's like people are very attracted to that. So it's
Right.
it's not an easy position to have for a woman to be in a relationship with a musician, unless she herself is in the business and understands it and can take it with a grain of salt, but which is not very often,
Now
but
that
those
being
women are
said,
out there.
now that being said,
My wife being one of them.
say again.
My wife being one of them. Those
Well,
women are
that's
out
what I was
there.
going to say.
Yeah.
You've been
Yeah.
married for quite some time, so obviously your wife understands it and gets it.
Yeah, she's in the business. She manages and she books other acts. So she understands this. She grew up in this industry. So to her, she was prepared for it before we even got together. So I
It,
think that being prepared in it made a big difference.
yeah, yeah, because that's the last thing you need. It'll kill the career every time. You know.
It does, and it breaks up bands more often than you think of. I mean, you can go back to the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles,
Right.
right?
Right. So now, when you look for a new band member, how important is it that the guy resembles Joe Perry or the guy resembles Tom Hamilton, etc.? How does that play in? How when you put out an ad, do you say, you know, Aerosmith tribute band looking for a guy looks like Joe Perry, must know catalog? How do you go about finding guys?
The music has to come first. You have to be able to play in the same style and same feel as the person who you're emulating. So, like
Mm-hmm.
when a Joe Perry position comes open, I'm looking for somebody who plays an aggressive form of like blues, um, to almost got a little punk in them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I search for that type of musician. And because you're going to have that attitude, that chippiness that you need to play Joe Perry.
Yeah.
Um, but I can't have a 7 foot tall overweight person playing Joe Perry.
Right.
It just because people aren't going to buy that,
No.
no matter how good he is. So there is an acting element to it that has to be auditioned as well as the musical. But I would say if it's 60-40. 60% music, 40% look. Or maybe even 70-30.
Mm.
You know? So some of the guys that we've had over the years don't necessarily look exactly like the person.
Right.
Whether these guys would have to wear a wig or slim down or hold the guitar a certain way. We can work with stuff like that, but you can't teach people how to play the instrument. So the music has got to be is first and foremost.
And I agree. I would much rather see a band that can play than a band that looks like Aerosmith but sucks. I mean,
Exactly.
It's like, what'd you do? Spend all your time getting dressed and doing your hair? I mean, you should have.
And trust me, I've had those guys. I've had those guys in the band that when they came down, they sounded like they had their stuff together, but then to come to find out that they were only really interested in how they looked and how they looked on stage, and every picture you would see them in, they're like smiling at the camera, not focusing on what they're trying to convey to the audience and the music itself, and it doesn't work.
Right.
And those are the guys that are in because maybe we were in a position where we needed somebody, and you realize it's not going to work with this guy. We got to let him go. We just got to find somebody else. And sometimes you don't find out these things until months down the road, and then you're in a predicament. So it's so hard. Never mind a band like Aerosmith staying together for 40 years, the same guys. Keeping a band together is a very difficult task because you have to have 5 people all on the same page, sharing the same vision as you.
Well,
you
it's
know
like
what I mean?
Steven Tyler says, it's like being married to 5 guys.
Yeah, it is. It is, and you better like those people.
Right.
You know what I mean? At least somewhat.
Right.
Because you're going to be spending a lot of time with those people.
True, very true. So now Aerosmith is talking about, well, as you know, they're doing a tour overseas, and rumor has it that they're going to be back here in the States in the summertime. Now, will you guys work around that? Will you guys be okay? Especially in the Northeast, will you guys be like, okay, they're playing Boston, so we're going to book a gig in Boston. They're playing AC, we're going to book a gig there, Nassau Coliseum, or whatever the case may be.
It depends, because a lot of our summer work is out in the Midwest. We do a lot of festivals and stuff like that. So, and a lot of it's already booked.
Yeah.
A lot of the summer is already booked up. And we'll be spending, like I think I mentioned earlier, like we'll be spending a lot of time in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota's on the list. Same with Illinois and down south. So it's going to be tough to coordinate those shows. Although our Atlantic City stuff, I don't think is booked yet. So maybe those shows will come in soon, and those will line up with the tri-state area shows.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because I would certainly like to see the band again. I like to tell things straight up, but like I said, I had no interest, and then I landed up at one of your gigs, and I was like, had the time of my life, So it was great stuff. And one of the songs...
we're back in... go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say that I know one show that we're coming back to this this summer or late spring is in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, just north of Philadelphia.
Sure.
There's an amphitheater out there, so I know we'll be back there in late spring and early summer. So I don't know if that's going to work its way around an Aerosmith show or not, but we'll be back in the area around then anyways.
Cool. Now, one of the things I remember when I saw you play, one of the things that stuck in my mind was your version of One Way Street. And I said, man, these guys fucking nailed it. And I had actually messaged Trisha, your wife, and said, if there's any way you can have a harmonica with them, it would be cool. Do you have one handy?
I don't have them handy because I'm on vacation.
Yeah. All right, well, next time we have you on the show, I want you to play some One Way Street for us. Because...
You know what we'll do? The next show you come, we'll do a little sidebar.
Okay.
Backstage. We can do it like, with the phone or whatever. We'll do a little sidebar, and I'll play some hop for you.
That'd be great.
That sound cool. Definitely do it,
Because I'm standing there literally like with my jaw on the floor going, this guy just nailed every freak. Because I've been listening to that album since, 74. And I'm like, this guy just nailed every freaking note for note on that. It was badass. So, you got it down. I admire what you put into the band. I admire your work, your dedication. I know it's not easy, especially if you're a family man. And like you say, you're playing, then you're back. You're playing, you're back. It can't be easy. But, I admire what you're doing and just keep doing it, man. Because there's a lot of
appreciate it.
A lot of people, and especially in this area, it's like they hear Draw the Lines coming, look out. They're there. As you know, you know all these people better than I do, that all show up.
But it's such a cool feeling.
Yeah, I'm sure when you show
up. It just means that what we're doing has value, that, the effort and all the time that we put into this is worth it, because it's really, it's affecting people in a positive way, and it's entertaining people. We're doing our jobs, and we put a lot of time into it. We're all into it to make it as authentic and as spot on as possible, because we want to be the best at what we do. And for people to just, appreciate that and show us their, support, that's what it's all about. And, having that means more than anything to us, the support,
right.
And just supporting us in this medium by putting, the band out there and having me on for an interview is just, you can't buy that stuff. It's just,
and wait till you see how I whore this too, because I am a relentless whore on Facebook. So this will go in every Aerosmith. Look out. People know. I'm like, my friends that I see every day, they're like, dude, you're a fucking dick on Facebook. I'm like, turn off the notifications. I'm like, right. Because if you're not interested in my show, go away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't have to listen. Nobody's
you have to listen, So, I mean, I go into every single Aerosmith group that there is and post. So, I'll whore the hell out of this interview. We're probably going to run it next week, because the show, it's like SV Law and Order. It's like a Law and Order thing. It airs once and it airs 8 more times.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
nice.
Yeah. The original air date is Thursday night. And then it airs 3 times Friday, 3 times Saturday, and then it airs Sunday. Now, the reason it airs so much is so I can accommodate different time zones. Because you take 12 o'clock at night here is 12 o'clock in the afternoon in Japan.
Right.
You got Australia. Right. They're 15 hours ahead of us. So if my show goes off at 8 p.m., well, that's not doing Australia any good. So, that's why the show is on so many different times. So we crack, we're like, what's this, an SVU marathon? I mean, this thing just goes and goes and goes. It's like, well, it's not just for the East Coast, so.
Right.
So we will definitely get the word out of there. You'll see it, believe me, and I'm going to shoot for next week to actually air this.
Okay. Just send me a text when you're going to do it, and I'll post it on our Facebook so I can let everybody know. And can I put like a hashtag, or not a hashtag, but just a promotion line? If I can just say, like us on Facebook.
Oh, sure.
Draw the Line on
Absolutely.
Facebook. Visit
Look, when I do these
drawtheline.net.
Yeah, absolutely. Promote the hell out of yourself, because when I do these things, I do them as a win-win. Okay? I win because I get somebody like you on my show. Hopefully you win because it brings you more exposure. And
absolutely.
Again, it's a win-win, and that's why I love doing them. It's like, why would anybody say no? It's like, can't hurt.
This grassroots type of promotion is the only way these days to reach people. You can't do it in print anymore.
No.
You can't really do it over regular radio anymore. It's got to be grassroots through, people reposting and the internet and just getting the word out and spreading it. That's the only way that you can get people the information they need about the band and the shows coming up, so they can, that's the only way to inform them. So, This is so important to us, This is great, and I appreciate you so much for having us on here, having me on here to schlep my stick about Draw the Line.
And never did I know from 2002, the guy standing next to me, that I'd be talking to here now. But, again, it was the funniest thing, because I'm looking going, man, this guy looks like Steven Tyler. And once I knew Steven knew who you were, then I was really intrigued. Okay, who the hell is this guy?
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Who is he? I want to know who he is.
Yeah. So I wish you continued success. I can't wait to see the band again. Be careful out there on the road, and I'll be monitoring you, on Facebook and checking you guys out and seeing what you're up to. And if you make your way to this area, I will certainly be there. And anything else you wanna say or promote right now? Why we have you on?
Well, I would just say, tune in to Access TV on March 3rd because we'll be live at the Whiskey. Keep an eye out for the Aerosmith Legacy Show. That has a fan page on Facebook as well. Visit that. You can see the promotional video on it. It's on the news feed on the page. Go down and that's just draw the line, but check it out. And it's with the big show. And keep your eyes open for us posting about shows coming to your area, because I know we're going to a lot of places this year, and we want to make sure we don't want anybody to feel like they missed it. We want to make sure that people know that we're coming there. And we know sometimes you didn't tell me you were coming. I'm like, well, we're posting. But people can't be checking back like every day, because nobody in the world's got that time to do that. So you have to get as many people to spread the word as possible. And thanks again for helping us do that.
My pleasure. Neill Byrnes from Draw the Line, everyone. Thank you so much for doing the show. And we hope to talk to you again soon. And rock hard, bro.
Jay, you keep rocking hard for us, and we keep rocking hard for you. How's that sound?
Got it. Such a pleasure to meet you, Neill. Thank you very, very much.
And thank you, Jay, too. It's my pleasure.
Okay.
We'll see you soon. All right, take care, buddy. Bye-bye.